The year is 1227. A titan falls. Genghis Khan, the unifier of the Mongol tribes, the architect of an empire stretching from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea, is dead. His empire, the largest contiguous land empire in history, covered an astonishing 12.7 million square miles. This vast dominion, established through unparalleled military prowess and brutal efficiency, now faced an existential question: what comes next? The prevailing narrative often ends with Genghis, implying a decline or dissolution. The truth, however, is far more complex, revealing a century of continued expansion, sophisticated governance, and profound cultural transformation, often overlooked for the legendary founder. Upon his death, Genghis Khan's will, the Yasa, dictated a clear succession plan and the division of his empire into 4 ulus, or appanages, among his 4 recognized sons by his chief wife, Borte. This was not a dismantling, but a structured decentralization designed to maintain family unity and control while accommodating the sheer scale of the conquests. The eldest, Jochi, had unfortunately predeceased his father in 1226, so his ulus, encompassing the westernmost territories including the Golden Steppes north of the Black Sea and the lands of Rus, passed to his formidable sons, notably Batu Khan. Chagatai received Central Asia, including Transoxiana and the Ili River Valley. Ogadai, designated as the Great Khan, inherited the ancestral Mongol homeland, East Turkestan, and the right to oversee the entire empire from the capital of Karakorum. Tolui, the youngest, received the traditional Mongol heartland and control over the elite central army. This division, though intended to prevent internecine conflict, ultimately laid the groundwork for future schisms. Ogadai's reign, from 1229 to 1241, marked a period of immense consolidation and expansion. He was a brilliant administrator, establishing a permanent capital at Karakorum in modern-day Mongolia, a city that became a vibrant, multi-ethnic hub. He introduced a standardized taxation system, a postal relay system called the Yam, that dramatically improved communication across the vast empire, and codified laws. Ogadai continued his father's relentless campaigns. The Mongol armies under generals like Subutai and Jebe were not simply raiders, they were master tacticians employing sophisticated siege warfare, psychological operations, and meticulous intelligence gathering. Their strategy was often to overwhelm, not just defeat. In the west, Ogadai launched a devastating invasion of Ruses in 1236, led by Batu Khan, Jochi's son, and the legendary general Subutai. This campaign, lasting until 1242, is often mistakenly attributed solely to Batu. However, it was a unified Mongol military effort under the authority of the Great Khan. The Ruses' principalities, disunited and internally squabbling, fell one by one. Ryazan, Vladimir, Suzdal, Kiev, all succumbed to the Mongol onslaught. The scale of destruction was immense. Kiev, once a magnificent cultural center, was reportedly reduced to 200 houses. The Mongols advanced into Central Europe, defeating Polish and German forces at the Battle of Legnica and Hungarian forces at the Battle of Mohi in 1241. Europe held its breath, fearing total subjugation. Then, a sudden reprieve. News arrived in late 1241 of Ogadai Khan's death. The campaign halted, and the Mongol Tumans, units of 10,000, retreated eastward for the Kurultai, the Grand Council, to elect a new Great Khan. This retreat, though accidental from a European perspective, saved the continent from potentially complete Mongol domination. The interregnum following Ogadai's death was tumultuous. His widow, Torajin Khatun, served as regent, demonstrating the significant, albeit often unheralded, power wielded by Mongol women. She shrewdly maneuvered to secure the succession for her son, Gyuk. Gyuk Khan, reigned 1246 to 1248, was an intemperate, short-lived ruler whose brief tenure was marked by growing friction between the various ulus, particularly with Batu Khan, the victor of the Ruses campaign. The seeds of decentralization were beginning to sprout discord. Marco Polo, the famous Venetian traveler, would later record his awe at the sheer scale and efficiency of the Mongol administration. Even if the primary sources for this early period are mostly Persian, Armenian, and Chinese chroniclers, who often viewed the Mongols through a lens of fear or awe. After Gayuk's unexpected death, another powerful woman, Ogul Kaimush, took the regency. However, her influence was challenged by the descendants of Tolui. This period saw shifting alliances and growing tension. Ultimately, in 1251, through the political machinations of Batu Khan and the unwavering support of the Toluids, Mongke, son of Tolui, was elected Great Khan. Mongke Khan, reigned 1251 to 1259, was a strong and capable ruler, perhaps the last to wield effective authority over the entire Mongol Empire. He initiated significant administrative reforms, including a comprehensive census across the empire and monetary reforms to stabilize the economy. He also launched ambitious new campaigns. Mongke entrusted his brother, Hulegu, with the task of conquering the Islamic heartlands of the Middle East, a campaign of unprecedented brutality and destruction. This became the Ilkhanate. In 1256, Hulegu's forces advanced into Persia, systematically dismantling the formidable assassin Nizari Ismaili strongholds, eradicating their influence. Then, in 1258, Hulegu turned his gaze towards Baghdad, the intellectual and spiritual capital of the Abbasid Caliphate. The city, a beacon of learning and culture for 500 years, was besieged and sacked with horrific savagery. The libraries of Baghdad, containing centuries of irreplaceable manuscripts, were destroyed, their contents reportedly used to pave streets or fill rivers. The Caliph, al-Mustasim, was executed, symbolically marking the end of the Abbasid Golden Age. The death toll was immense, estimated in the hundreds of thousands. This event sent shockwaves across the Islamic world and beyond. From Baghdad, Hulegu continued his advance into Syria, capturing Aleppo and Damascus, threatening Egypt, then under the Mamluk Sultanate. Simultaneously, Mongke himself led a massive campaign against the southern Song dynasty of China. This protracted conflict aimed to complete the conquest initiated by Genghis Khan. The Song, technologically advanced and numerically superior, proved a resilient foe. Mongke's strategies were complex, involving multiple fronts and sophisticated logistics. Tragically for the Mongols, Mongke Khan died during this campaign. In 1259, reportedly from dysentery, his sudden death again plunged the empire into a succession crisis, a pattern that would ultimately contribute to the empire's fragmentation. This time, the crisis resulted in a full-blown civil war. The Toluid Civil War, 1260–1264, erupted between Mongke's brothers, Kublai and Arik Böke. Both were strong contenders, but their visions for the empire differed. Kublai, who favored a more signified, settled approach to governance control the wealthier, more populous eastern regions and eventually emerged victorious. Arik Böke, who championed the traditional nomadic Mongol values and sought to maintain Karakorum as the capital, was defeated after years of costly warfare. This civil war was a watershed moment. It fundamentally fractured the idea of a single, unified Great Khan ruling over a cohesive empire. While Kublai would later claim the title of Great Khan, his authority was largely acknowledged only by the Ilkhanate in Persia and the Golden Horde in the west. The Chagatai Khanate often remained hostile. The dream of a truly unified Mongol world empire, overseen from Karakorum, effectively ended with this conflict. Kublai Khan, reigned 1260–1294, achieved what his grandfather could not, the complete conquest of China. In 1271, he formally established the Yuan dynasty, Towan, and moved his capital to Daidu, modern-day Beijing, a symbolic departure from the nomadic traditions of Karakorum. His conquest of the southern Song was a long, arduous process, finally completed in 1279. The sheer scale of this endeavor, involving a sophisticated navy for river and coastal warfare, demonstrates the Mongol adaptability and their integration of Chinese engineering expertise. Kublai also launched ambitious, though ultimately unsuccessful, naval invasions of Japan in 1274 and 1281. These expeditions, involving thousands of ships and hundreds of thousands of soldiers, were thwarted by fierce Japanese resistance and devastating typhoons, which the Japanese famously called kamikaze or divine wind. Kublai's expeditions to Southeast Asia, including Vietnam and Java, also met with limited success, highlighting the limits of Mongol power in tropical climates and naval warfare. Under Kublai, The Yuan dynasty flourished economically and culturally. He patronized arts and sciences, implemented a sophisticated paper money system, and maintained the extensive postal system. He welcomed foreign dignitaries and merchants, most famously Marco Polo, whose accounts provided Europe with unprecedented insight into the East. Though largely Sinified, Kublai faced constant challenges in governing China, a civilization vastly different from his nomadic roots. He relied heavily on non-Chinese administrators, including Mongols and Uyghurs, leading to resentment among the native Han population. Meanwhile, the other Ulus developed their own distinct identities. The Ilkhanate, founded by Hulegu, established itself in Persia and Mesopotamia. Its rulers, known as Ilkhans, initially adhered to traditional Mongol shamanism but gradually converted to Islam, a monumental shift. Genghis Khan, reigned 1295 to 1304, officially adopted Islam as the state religion, marking a decisive break from their shamanistic past and aligning them more closely with their Persian subjects. This conversion brought the Ilkhanate legitimacy within the Islamic world, but further distanced them from the other Mongol Khanates. The Ilkhanate served as a crucial bridge between East and West, facilitating trade and cultural exchange along the Silk Road. Its capital, Tabriz, became a center of scholarship and artistic innovation. The Ilkhanids also engaged in protracted conflicts with the Mamluks of Egypt, particularly over control of Syria. The Battle of Ain Jalut in 1260, where the Mamluks decisively defeated Hulegu's forces while Hulegu was absent at the Kurultai, was a pivotal moment, marking the first major defeat of the Mongol army and demonstrating that they were not invincible. The Golden Horde, under Batu Khan and his successors, dominated the steppes of Eastern Europe and ruled over the fragmented Rus's principalities for over 2 centuries. Their capital, Sarai, grew into one of the largest cities of the medieval world, a bustling commercial hub. The Golden Horde's rule, known as the Tatar Yoke, significantly impacted the development of Russian identity and statehood. While they allowed the Rus's princes a degree of autonomy, they extracted heavy tribute and periodically enforced their will through punitive raids. Alexander Nevsky, the Prince of Novgorod, famously chose accommodation with the Mongols over resistance, recognizing their formidable power. The Golden Horde was never truly unified with the other Khanates. After the early period, their interests diverged significantly. Dynastic struggles plagued the Golden Horde, leading to its eventual fragmentation into smaller Khanates like the Crimean Khanate, Kazan Khanate, and Astrakhan Khanate, which persisted well into the early modern period. The Chagatai Khanate, controlling Central Asia and parts of Afghanistan, remained the most fiercely traditional and resistant to settled life. It served as a buffer between the Ilkhanate and the Yuan dynasty. Often embroiled in internal feuds and external conflicts with its neighbors, the Chagatai Khanate was a turbulent region. Its long history of internal instability eventually led to its fragmentation in the mid-14th century. However, it was within the territory of the former Chagatai Khanate that Timur, or Tamerlane, would rise in the late 14th century, seeking to revive the Mongol Empire under a new banner. The mid-13th to mid-14th centuries witnessed what historians call the Pax Mongolica, a period of relative peace and stability across the vast interconnected domains of the Mongol Empire. While often exaggerated in its scope and duration, the Pax Mongolica undeniably facilitated unprecedented trade and cultural exchange along the revitalized Silk Road. Goods, technologies, ideas, and even diseases flowed freely across Eurasia. Paper, printing, gunpowder, and the compass, all developed in China, spread westward. Diplomatic missions, such as those of the Franciscan friars Giovanni da Pian del Carpine and William of Rubruck, traveled to the Mongol court, providing invaluable, if sometimes biased, accounts of Mongol life and governance. These exchanges had a profound, if indirect, impact on the Renaissance in Europe. However, the late 13th and 14th centuries also exposed the inherent fragilities of the Mongol system. The sheer size of the empire made centralized control increasingly difficult. The distinct cultural and economic priorities of each ulus led to diverging interests. The Yuan dynasty in China faced the challenge of governing a high-population, sophisticated agricultural society with a deeply ingrained administrative tradition. The Ilkhanate became Persianized and Islamized. The Golden Horde maintained its nomadic roots, but also integrated settled populations. The Chagatai Khanate struggled with defining its identity. Economic strain also played a significant role in the decline. While Kublai's paper money system initially brought prosperity, its later abuse through overissuance led to inflation and economic instability in the Yuan dynasty. Rebellions against Mongol rule were constant, particularly in China. The Red Turban Rebellion in the mid-14th century, fueled by economy, hardship, famine, and resentment against foreign rule, ultimately led to the collapse of the Yuan dynasty in 1368 and the establishment of the Ming dynasty by the Han Chinese. The Black Death, or the bubonic plague, also dealt a devastating blow to the Mongol world. The disease, likely originating in Central Asia, spread along the trade routes facilitated by the Mongol Empire. It ravaged China, Persia, and the Middle East before reaching Europe in 1347. The massive population losses destabilized economies and depleted military manpower, further weakening the already strained Mongol Khanates. It's ironic that the very connectivity fostered by the Pax Mongolica also acted as a superhighway for the most deadly pandemic in human history. The legacy of the Mongols after Genghis Khan is not one of uniform decline, but rather one of adaptive governance, cultural diffusion, and eventual fragmentation into distinct polities. Each successor state developed its own unique character, shaped by its environment and the cultures it encountered. The Yuan dynasty left an indelible mark on Chinese history, integrating many foreign elements while simultaneously reinforcing certain aspects of Chinese imperial rule. The Ilkhanate contributed significantly to Persian culture and fostered intellectual advancements. The Golden Horde molded the geopolitical landscape of Eastern Europe and influenced the rise of Muscovy. By the end of the 14th century, the great Mongol Empire, in its unified form, was purely a historical memory. Yet, the reverberations of its existence continued for centuries. The Ottoman Empire, which rose to power in Anatolia, adopted many Mongol military and administrative innovations. The Mughal Empire in India, founded by Babur in 1526, proudly traced its lineage back to both Genghis Khan and Timur. The truth no one tells is that the Mongol story did not end with Genghis Khan. It evolved, adapted, and ultimately transformed the face of Eurasia in ways that are still evident today. The administrative structures, the postal systems, the legal framework, and the cultural exchanges initiated by these successor states profoundly shaped the course of later civilizations. The sheer ambition of these post-Genghis rulers, like Ögedei, Manka, and Kublai, to not only maintain but expand and stabilize such a vast and diverse empire from horseback, is a testament to their political acumen and the enduring power of the infrastructure Genghis Khan had established. Their impact is not merely limited to destruction, but also encompassed significant contributions to global interconnectedness, governance, and cultural synthesis, even if born of conquest. The tale of the Mongols in its entirety is a testament to human ambition, resilience, and the relentless march of history.